All right. Hello, everybody.
Hey, hi.
Hey, how's everybody doing? Looks like we got some attendees coming in here. I'm
Okay.
gonna go ahead and the presentation staged. Do this. Share out my screen. How's that? You guys see my screen okay?
Yep.
Yeah, looks good.
Perfect. Perfect. All right. So it looks like we've got attendees are rolling in. How's it going, everybody? Thank you for joining. As the screen says, we're gonna give everybody about 5 minutes to get in here before we kick things off and get into the workshop. But happy you guys are here today. Good to see some familiar names. As always, it's always fun to see you guys joining these, each time. So thank you for that. Ron, Samantha, how's everybody doing? You guys good?
Doing good. Doing good.
Doing
yeah,
good.
Yeah.
Awesome. Ron, I see the bike in the background, man. That's I think you're
Oh
telling me
yeah.
that's your
I'll
new
get
bike
out of the
there.
way. You could see it. Oh yeah.
All right, hop on there. Show us
There
how
you
it
go.
works.
So it's my fat tire bike or my Terraformer. So I'm here in New Mexico right now, and that's a Rio Grande. And fat tire bike's like 4-inch tires. This thing, take a guess. Anyway, how much do you think this thing weighs? Well, I already told you guys, so you know. So
Spoiler alert.
22 pounds, man. So nice carbon fiber. The rims are carbon fiber. These tires roll
So
great.
nice.
I got a cross country mountain bike race bike, and the rolling resistance on these tires are similar or less than on my race bike. So that I use my Maxxis Recon races.
What's an average mountain bike, like if it didn't have the carbon fiber and all that? What's an average mountain bike weigh?
You're like full suspension type mountain bike and stuff, you'd be around, an average one just would be around 28, 30 pounds. And then you start adding carbon fiber and all of these things. And so from that weight going down, it's like $500 or so a pound to reduce. So
wow.
My wife jokes and just says, hey, just lose some weight. And wouldn't it be easier to lose some weight? And it's like, oh, honey, come on.
That's why I got the bike.
No.
That's exactly it.
Yeah, this one here is like 22 pounds and just flies. And those big tires, it can just climb up just about anything, It's pretty cool.
Very cool.
So actually this bike here is out of Colorado Springs, Borealis. So they do like fat tire kind of race bikes and things like that. So yeah.
Okay.
So I ordered, and then with the parts supply issues, it was cool. I ordered it on a Monday and I had it by that weekend. It was built and shipped from Colorado Springs down to New Mexico, to Corrales, where I am at right now.
Okay. How's the weather in Corrales? You guys getting any of that heat wave? I guess
we had that heat wave, but we kind of have the monsoons coming in now and have afternoon rains and stuff like that. And that's the Rio Grande right there. And then behind there is the mountains, the Sandias. So wow. I live up on a little hill, and coming out of the driveway without even pedaling, it's just like 200 yards. By the time I hit the bottom of the hill, I'm doing like 43 miles an hour. It's just like, so I have to save a little bit of fun in the tank to get back up the hill at the end of the day.
How remote
Better be
are you?
wearing a helmet.
Go ahead, Patrick. Oh, it's Corrales is real close to Albuquerque and stuff. So
okay, so you're not too remote.
Yeah, I'm not too remote now.
So
but what was cool, the back behind me up there's this New Mexico sign, and it said like 1540 Coronado spent the summer back up behind my house and stuff like that in 1540.
Nice. Wow.
So yeah.
That's cool.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll tell you, we just relocated down to the Jacksonville area, and we're not too far from St. Augustine, and that's another one. Look, I think it's in the 1500s they built that thing. The oldest city in America, I believe, is the claim.
Okay.
It's amazing, just amazing when you see that, right? And you look at the architecture and just what they were able to accomplish back then.
Yeah. So a lot of the stuff in New Mexico, northern New Mexico, is kind of Spanish land grants. So the families, came over from Spain and stuff, and settled here. So yeah.
Very good. Well, listen, we are at 5 after. I see so we still have some people funneling in here, but we're going to go ahead and kick it off, guys. And thank you again to everybody who just joined. You know, really happy to have you here today. But we're going to go ahead and kick this thing off. We're going to be touching on a pretty cool topic today, one that we have the right guest for as well. As you guys know, we do these workshops monthly. We did skip the month of June. I was moving from New Jersey down to Florida, so I figured, you know what, I better skip a month if if I want to make this move happen. So we're picking it back up this month, and this is one of my favorite topics. I'm really excited about this today. We're going to be talking about deploying custom applications with Custom Partition, which is an IGEL feature. We're going to go deep into that, deep dive, and we have the right guy who I'll introduce here in a minute, Ron Nair, who was my coworker when I worked at IGEL, has, just done a lot of cool things with the Custom Partition. We're also joined temporarily by Samantha. Thank you, Samantha, for putting this together. She does all the hard work behind the scenes here for these events. So we just show up and look pretty. So that's really the easy part. So so again, thank you guys. And so let's just jump into it, right? Let's jump right into this. I always like to lead these with just a little bit about who we are as XenTegra, because we're a big IGEL partner. We actually have the highest partnership available at XenTegra, or I'm sorry, at IGEL. We're what's called an IGEL Elite Partner with Services Specialization. So that means there's only a handful in the country. I think it's like maybe 2 or 3 partners that have that type of capability. And IGEL is one of our core technologies. If you go on our website, if you go to XenTegra.com and you look at our partners, you'll see, Citrix is obviously a huge partner, VMware, Microsoft, especially with Azure Virtual Desktop, ServiceNow, and IGEL's the other one of our big 5. So, IGEL is just a huge part of what we do at XenTegra. Personally, I do a lot with our endpoint technologies, and IGEL is kind of the leader in that space, as far as I'm concerned. A little bit about myself. I actually, for some of you guys on the call know me. I see some familiar names here. For those of you who don't, I was joking with Ron. I put this picture up to get a little sympathy. You see how many mouths I'm feeding at home here. So that's me, my wife, and my 4 children. And but I as I mentioned before, I just moved to Jacksonville area, so I just relocated down to Florida. I lived in the South Jersey area right outside of Philadelphia previously. And I spent 4 years at IGEL previous to XenTegra. So I covered a lot of really New York, New Jersey, the Northeast, right? When I was at IGEL as a sales engineer. But I've been in the EUC digital workspace environment for about 12, almost 13 years. And before I was at IGEL, I was an IGEL customer in healthcare. Before that, I was in industrial contracting, but always in that EUC type of role, VDI, all these different technologies as XenTegra lives and breathes. On a personal level, as you see there, I'm a husband, I'm a father of 4. I serve in an addictions ministry through my former local church. But now that I'm relocated, I can't say that anymore. It's not local. But just so when I'm not working, I know it's something I'm passionate about and helping people get out of addiction. But as for today, let's talk about who we are at XenTegra. So XenTegra, why I joined, I'd like to talk about who we are because I'm really happy to be here. I'm really happy to be a part of an organization like XenTegra, but let's talk about why and who we are. Here's a quote from our founder, Andy Whiteside, which says, XenTegra was born out of a need for customer enablement and partnerships. And that's a simple quote, right? You might not think much of it, but I could tell you, I met Andy actually before he started XenTegra. I was working down in Charlotte, North Carolina. I relocated there for 2 years. And I had a customer, I was working for a software company. We had a customer that was a big Citrix customer. And there was this sales engineer named Andy Whiteside who, was just really sharp and knew Citrix in and out. I think he won like the Citrix Sales Engineer of the Year Sales Engineer of the Year for I think that year or the year before. Was a go-getter and really loved to kind of work alongside of him. Soon after that, he started XenTegra. I think we're 10 years old now. I should probably know that, but I think it's 10 years old. And I could tell you years later when I went to IGEL and XenTegra was one of our main partners, it was always evident to me that XenTegra was a partner that we weren't just there to transact. XenTegra wasn't just there to like, hey, at the end, hey, we set all this stuff up. Now we need a PO. No, XenTegra has, technical know-how. We'll talk about in a few minutes some of the things that set us apart, but it was always refreshing. And I always liked working with XenTegra while I was at IGEL because it was a very different type of look and feel as far as how much they valued partnership, how much they valued the technology partners that they partner with, and how much they know it. We're heavy in engineering. So we're not just people who can throw up a few marketing slides. Like, we know these technologies in and out. We live and breathe them. We use them internally, and we really believe in the value of partnership. And here, as I mentioned, here's some of our core technologies. If you go on our website, XenTegra.com, you go to partners, you'll see our core technologies as well as a whole list of other technologies that we work with. The 5 core ones being Citrix, Microsoft, IGEL, Nutanix, ServiceNow, and VMware. And a couple things that we do. Obviously, we're a VAR, a value-added reseller, so we can transact just like any other VAR out there. We can help you. If you're like, hey, I need a quote, I need to buy this solution, we can do that. We do that for a lot of customers. But the thing that sets us apart, VAR, value-added reseller, is really the value part. We emphasize value. I like to say we're a VAR with a capital V. And some of the ways we do that is we have an entire services division. So we can do, manage everything up to managed service. You can either, just do like a quick service engagement. Hey, we need help on this project. Okay, great. Write up a, statement of work for you, bring in some expertise. Or, hey, we want you guys to manage everything and host it. Or we want to host it and have you guys manage it, whether it's Citrix, VMware, whatever. We can do that as well. Because ultimately we're about giving the customer solutions, right? We lead with what's best for the customer. It's not about just, pushing one technology versus the other. We really are very serious about making sure that whatever we bring to the customer, it's best for them. And some other things that set us apart, what we're doing right now, right? We're on a event type of workshop, right? XenTegra is huge on events. So I've done many events with XenTegra over the years, both at IGEL and now with XenTegra. And we really do, we value getting people together, like-minded people, getting people together to connect, similar to what we're talking about today, right? With the IGEL community, right? It's the idea of bringing people together, sharing ideas, networking. So we just, that's a huge part of our business. We do all types of different events, from these workshops, which are online. We do every Wednesday, we have what's called Webinar Wednesday. That's usually more of a high level marketing type of thing. And then what we do on once a month, we'll have generally what's called a workshop or a boot camp. So in this instance, a workshop is going to be more technical, not too technical, but we're killing you, right? But we want to walk through it with you so you can see it happen. And then we have also what's called a boot camp, which is like an actual hands-on lab training. We do a monthly one with Nutanix. Really good stuff. But we're just huge on that. But we also do a lot of in-person events, and I know that that's ramping back up. So we've been doing a lot of sporting events. We've been doing things like axe throwing, certain states, going out to the gun range, depending on what state you're in. They're more popular in some than others. But a lot of baseball games, hockey games, basketball, football season's coming up. Looking forward to that. So definitely, if you're interested in that, either reach out to us or go on our website, XenTegra.com/events. Take a look at what we're doing. Definitely love to have you guys out to as many events as we can. Mentioned the webinars, the more of the marketing approach. Another thing, we do a podcast. So today we're talking about IGEL. We do a weekly IGEL podcast called IGEL Weekly. We also have a weekly podcast for Citrix, VMware, ServiceNow, Azure Virtual Desktop, and you can find all of them at podcast.XenTegra.com. They support all the major, podcast platforms out there, whether you're, you like Apple's podcast app or a third party. We're published to all of them, so you can just use whatever app you like and give us a listen. And I found talking with customers, they really enjoy these, even just to get like kind of know what's going on out there. So I like to listen. I'm on the IGEL one, but I like to listen to the podcast on other technologies, just so I'm up current with all these things. So it's really, really a great value add, a great resource tool to put in your tool belt. We also do staffing. This is a great, a lot of people don't realize we do this. So we have a guy who runs our staffing our staffing division. And we're really, this has been ramping up quite a bit. A lot of customers reaching out to us saying, "Hey, look, I have a staffing need. I need a Citrix engineer." Well, we're very well networked in the Citrix user group communities and all of that. And on the flip side, we'll have people come to us and say, "Hey, look, I'm looking for a new role. Do you guys have anything?" So if you do have, if you're on either side of that fence, either you're looking for a new role, or hey, you're involved in hiring and you're looking for somebody to bring you candidates that are actually qualified, we vet them out. We'll bring them to you. So definitely reach out. Love to help you there as well. One thing I'll mention too, this is our free micro assessment. We've historically offered these for Citrix and I believe Nutanix, but we now have an IGEL micro assessment. So we'll come in, we'll take a look at your production environment. We usually, it takes about, with IGEL, it's about an hour call. Sometimes with Citrix can be about a 2-hour call. We'll go through all of your settings, and then we actually write up a report. So you'll have a full SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, and our basically recommendations for you guys to fix them. So really a great value add, and it's completely free, no gimmick. Just it's all we need is a signed statement of work, and that's it. We'll enter right into it. Another thing that's separate from XenTegra that I'd always like to mention, we, Andy Whiteside, our founder, started an organization called Computers for Community. And what we're doing is, we work with our various partners, Google, IGEL, to repurpose hardware and then donate them to different charities. So if you, at your organization, if you have the ability to, bring in a charity and say, "Hey, look, we're going to donate this equipment that we're end of lifing. We'll give you the whole certificate. I forget what it's called, but the certificate when you get that stuff wiped or whatever, we can provide that. And we can go ahead and even donate it to the charity of your choice. So it's a really great cause, great organization. If you're interested, reach out. Love to talk to you about that. One last thing, and then the marketing, it will be over here. We gave away a Ford Bronco this year. We actually just raffled it off. And there are some rumblings. I can neither confirm nor deny, but this may be coming back. So if you didn't win on the first one, and chances are if you're on here, you didn't win because there was quite a few people entered into that. But you can't win if you don't play. So stay tuned. I'm hearing some rumblings. There might be another one coming that you can enter into. And yeah, we'll just stay tuned on that one. But I wanted to kind of plug that, little shameless plug. All right. So back to IGEL. So we're going to be talking today about the IGEL Custom Partition. And so what is a custom partition? I'll just kind of briefly lay that out, and then I'll introduce Ron, who is really the guy who we want on the call. I'll explain that in a sec. But an IGEL Custom Partition is basically, it's a feature that allows you to push Linux applications to IGEL operating system that are not already embedded. So, for example, IGEL operating system has, I don't know how many apps they're up to, it's quite a few, but you have your Citrix Workspace app, your Horizon client, Amazon Virtual Desktop client, you've got your Amazon Workspaces client, you have 2 browsers, Firefox and Chromium. But a lot of times customers say, "You know what, I like Firefox and Chromium, but I want to deploy Edge." Now, Microsoft has an Edge application now for Linux, believe it or not. Or we want Chrome. So that might be a requirement. And I've been a part of engagements where the customer said, "Hey, this is the requirement." Or maybe I want to run Zoom or Teams locally in Linux, right on IGEL operating system. But what Custom Partition allows you to do is deploy those applications to the IGEL devices. And the reason I'm so excited about today to talk about this feature is because we're joined by Ron Nair. And I always like to joke Ron is the godfather of the IGEL Custom Partition store. So a little history here. It's always, the Custom Partition feature is it's an awesome feature. Historically, it's always required some technical know-how. So we had a knowledge base in the IGEL knowledge base that said, "Hey, here's all the steps you need to do this manually." So then IGEL hired a guy named Ron. Ron comes on board. He starts packaging these things up. He's sharing them internally. And then Ron took it upon himself to basically create an entire store in the IGEL community with all kinds of different scripts and everything else. And it's just been awesome. So we're going to walk through a lot of that today. but Ron's a good friend, somebody I've worked with in the past. Ron, I'll let you say hello, and why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself beyond what I've already said.
Oh, you did a great job, man. Yeah, so basically I've been with IGEL a couple years now. I guess I came over in 2020, made it to the Citrix Summit thing in Orlando in January. That was my first week, and then we had the IGEL Disrupt in Nashville, and then flew off to Munich, and then came back, and then COVID, right? So yeah, but anyway, yeah, as we were mentioning, just with the custom partitions, my strong background in Unix and Linux and stuff like that, and the custom partitions, we had some basic documents of how to do it, and it seemed kind of like a black art or whatever, or a dark art or whatever the right term is. But after I did a couple custom partitions and just said, oh, hey, these deb files are maybe missing some libraries that IGEL doesn't have, or you want some special customization and restoring, saving different data and stuff like that. So after I did it a couple times, it's like, man, as my wife says, man, she's very technical too. And it's just like, if you do something more than 2 or 3 times, you figure out a way to automate it. So that's what I did. And putting that together, we got a GitHub site, and I wrote some code to automate some stuff on GitHub and stuff too. So we'll go through all of that later. So yeah.
Yeah, and Ron, it's probably worth mentioning, right? Like, so you did all of this in the IGEL community, and our approach at XenTegra, and what I believe personally for sure, is what really separates IGEL from a lot of its competitors. That none of them have anything close to what the IGEL community is, right? The IGEL community is up to how many? Like, it's over 8,000 members now, I think.
Yeah, it's getting close to like 8,600 members. We've got our Slack channel and stuff we've been doing for many years. Even for myself, if I don't know how to do something, I look in the IGEL knowledge base, and if I don't find it there, I go to the IGEL community, and probably 95+% of the time it answers even my own questions, right? And if it's not answered there, I even post questions in the IGEL community. I'm like, hey, how do you solve this, or look at this? And within 6 or 7 minutes, you've got an answer. And collaboration for how your peers are doing certain things. So if it's in the hospital environment or a manufacturing or banking or whatever, if you've got a question on how to do something, it's probably been asked and solved within the community already. So it's a great having that behind you. Know that, choosing IGEL, you're not going to be alone on an island trying to figure out stuff. You've got a whole community to behind you, right? So very cool.
Very cool. Now we got our first question come in. This is perfect timing to lay out like what we're going to be doing today, and I love it. David Prowse asked the question. He might be trolling you. I don't know. I mean, it sounds like you guys might know each other, but he says, does Ron answer his own questions in the IGEL community?
I think so. The funny thing is I'm like, oh, how do I do this? Or I remember this, and then I go and I look in the IGEL community, and it's like, oh, here's the answer. Who was the smart person that had that idea? And it's like, oh, that was me. It's like my wife and I joke, we can hide our own Easter eggs.
Well, we can confirm you're not like a politician that has like a receptionist writing all their tweets and everything. This is actually, you're in the IGEL community. That's so great stuff. And David, thank you for asking a question out of the gate. Guys, we want to keep this conversational. We definitely, so what we're going to do here is we're going to I'm going to let Ron share out here in a minute. Ron's going to walk through the IGEL community page, like where the custom partition store lives, show you some of the applications that are on there. There's a lot of them. Talk through that a little bit, and then we're going to go right into an actual live demo of it, where you're going to watch Ron download one of the scripts that's on the website, show you how simple it is to just download a script, run it. One requirement, obviously, we'll talk about this, but you need a Linux device or virtual machine or something to package up and run the script and package it. But beyond that, it's extremely, extremely simple. But as Ron's going through it, I'm going to be kind of babysitting the question and answer and chat. So guys, please, any questions that come to mind, even if you want to inject a little humor into it, feel free, open it up in the chat. We want to keep this definitely conversational, and we wish there was an easier way to get you guys on there other than the chat, but via text. But by all means, chat is okay. Never mind. Chat is disabled. It must go. It has to go in the question and answer area. So thank you for that, David. I did not realize that. I'll click answer live to that one. All right. So let's go ahead and do that, Ron. So I'm going to let you share out. I'm going to stop sharing on my side.
Cool. So yeah, let me go ahead. I'm just sharing my desktop here. Cool. Let me know when you can see my screen.
See it. Perfect.
Excellent. Okay.
Hey, real quick, Ron.
Here,
yeah, I was just gonna say you have to tell us about your picture there. That's a very nice picture. I think you stenciled that by hand, if I remember correctly.
No. My daughter found it, and my daughter's a third grade school teacher in north of Austin, Texas, in the Round Rock School District. So some artwork, and so she saw this and knew I worked at IGEL, and so she said, "Look, there's a hedgehog on a bike," and I was like, "I got to have that for my background." So anyway,
that looks like it belongs on the IGEL community.
There you go.
Whoever drew that, that's pretty amazing.
Cool. So what we're going to do here is just kind of, let me summarize. I'm just going to kind of show you the start off with the end results and what you see deploying a custom partition, and then we're going to kind of dive into that and kind of, what would be the right term, and something like, see how the sausage is made, so to speak. So anyway, so in the IGEL community, as we were mentioning, everyone should join that, even if you're not an IGEL customer yet, but you're kind of looking at it or evaluating it. Go into the IGEL community, join the community on Slack, and just kind of watch what's going on there, and the collaboration with them. As you said, it's almost 8,600 members strong in there. But on the IGELcommunity.com site, you can join it from here. But we have other content and stuff that's here, like getting started. There's blog posts. There's events that we have. There's videos. So there are videos on how to do, set up certain things, whatever, and archives and much more. One of the pieces on this is tied in with the IGEL community and custom partition. So as Patrick was saying, IGEL has this strong IGEL ready partner ecosystem. We have 120 plus partners that we have that we integrate technology into. So basically with IGEL, then you could say, hey, I'm in a hospital, I want to do Improvata Tap and Go, or Zoom, or whatever the other pieces are that you're using. It's already baked into IGEL. And so all you do is you set up profiles, and we'll go through that in a second and kind of show that. But if there is a use case where you say, hey, we want to run something natively on the endpoint. So maybe we had a manufacturing customer and they wanted some SCADA machine controllers or whatever. And they say, hey, we got this app on Linux. Can we do it? And it's like, yeah, I can, put a custom partition together for that. And as I do those, I contribute that to the community and the GitHub. So that stuff there is there as well. So what I want to do here is really switch over to the IGEL community on GitHub. And so what we have on there, and you can just Google IGEL community GitHub and you would land here. And so we have some PowerShell stuff to tie into our API. So if you want to automate certain workflows or settings, you can do that in PowerShell. We have documents, IGEL Docs. So how to set certain things up, cheat sheets, et cetera there. We have custom partitions and other scripts. So real quick, if I just go into the docs, for example, here we go. We have stuff around, basic cheat sheet or how to type to do things, right? So if you wanted to, set up, here's my little note on a Dynabook setup or whatever, or how to run IGEL as in a hypervisor with VMware Fusion or whatever. There's stuff there. The other cool thing we have in here is release notes. So what I publish here is every time we release a new version, the release notes are here as well. So for example, the latest one just came out like 6 days ago. So if you look here, you could go in there and say, hey, what's in 1107.188 build, right? And you could say, oh, it's the RDP client. We fixed its a time zone redirection setting. then you can open a ticket with IGEL support and request that one. But anyway, all of those, all that kind of material is there. What I want to do now is, if I go into custom partitions, what this does is kind of outline what a custom partition is. I've put some videos in here about, here's a video showing building Microsoft Teams in 42 seconds, or a Zoom, how to add Zoom custom partition to your UMS, or multiple custom partitions, etc. I also have some stuff with build automation workflows. So if you think about, a lot of time when customers will have custom partitions just kind of set up to say, hey, my backend Citrix or VMware or AVD, if there's an issue in the backend, am I completely dead? No. I mean, what you could do is you could publish custom partitions to the endpoint, not give the icon on the desktop, and then in the business continuity or DR event, you could publish, Edge or Teams or Zoom icon on the desktop, and they can continue. So if there was an outage in the backend, you could just do that and have that going. So if you have requirements for a high number of 5 nines, 6 nines availability, instead of building the backend infrastructure to have 5 nines or 6 nines, you could say, hey, my business continuity DR plan is just to punch these icons onto the desktop. They can continue to run during an outage. And if when that outage is done, then you can take those icons away from the desktop and clean it up. So that's kind of one reason why. The other cool thing here with the custom partitions in GitHub is that you can customize things. So if you're doing Zoom and you don't want, profile data, or you want to set certain things, like you're a government entity, there's certain settings in Zoom you would want to do to tie into the Zoom government instance and stuff like that. So you can automate those kind of workflows in there.
Hey, Ron.
Yeah,
Ron, we got our next question. Well, first we had a comment. David said there's some awesome stuff. He forgot a lot of this existed. Same here. I mean, I saw there was an Imprivata document in there. I'm thinking that's amazing. I didn't realize that was living there. But Rakesh has asked a question. Rakesh says, can we deploy apps from the Universal Management Suite? So basically, once these are packaged, do you deploy them from the UMS console?
Yeah, you will. We'll go through that. You'll build a profile, or the profile is in here. So when you run the script, and we'll go through this for Zoom and build that out so that you can see it. But what's really cool about the IGEL stuff and what we've got here in the GitHub is that you're not limited to a certain number of applications. Some vendors will just say, hey, here's we might have things and we figured out how to do it with Zoom or Teams or whatever, just grab a dev file and drop it in. Well, you don't know what's changed in the dev file or other settings. It's just kind of like, well, you dump it in there and I hope to God it works, right? Well, with this, you can see everything that was done and you can customize it yourself, right? And build that out, so.
Yep. And
so
just
go ahead. Yeah.
I was going to say at a high level here, right? Just the 1,000-foot square view, a 1,000-foot view from the top. Think of what Ron's showing you here, Rakesh, this is the app store, right? This is where this is the catalog. Hey, your management comes to you, end users say, hey, we need this application locally. Okay, let's go here to the IGEL community, go to the GitHub page, see what's built. And 9 times out of 10, it's going to be there. All the main applications that most customers are using are here, right? So all you're going to do is download a quick and easy little package that has a script in it. You run it, it automatically downloads the latest version, compiles it, packages it up in this nice little box that you take to your UMS console, and then push that thing out to whatever devices you want to. So it's a really, really great tool to have. But great question, Rakesh. Thank you for that.
Yeah, and what I did is I just had some automation workflow as well, because if you think about Zoom, new versions of Zoom come out all the time. If you're using Edge or Chrome browser, custom partition, new versions come out all the time. How do you keep up with that in your workflow? So let me just kind of dive in that just real quick. So inside of the GitHub area, there's an area called utils, and there's the CP build automation. And what this basically does is say, hey, if I've got a custom partition for Zoom, Teams or Edge or whatever, or you could, just take this little build script here and have it on your Ubuntu 18.04 system and you basically could just run it every day or have it set up to run every day. And all it does is just grab the builder, run it, and then it compares that build to what you already have up on your UMS. And if there's a newer version, it'll tell you, put it up there, and then you just have your workflow in the UMS to go ahead and add that new version. So if you look at, here's like sample output from that automation, as you can say, in this example, I'm doing, the Edge, Teams, WebEx, and Zoom. And so when I run the script, it just goes off, grabs them, and comes back and just says, hey, I built Edge, and it says, oh, it's the same version that you have, but nothing is done there. So Zoom, same version, et cetera. But if it comes down to something that says new version, Teams, new version of Teams, it says, hey, new version of Teams, it copies it up to your file server and has it ready there for you to go. Then you can add that, in your change window or whatever, add that to your UMS and go. So there's build automation that could just run all the time, checking for the latest version. And if it's there, the script would notify you of that. So that's something you could grab and run. We can do another session, or you can ping me on the IGEL community on Slack, and I can show some other stuff there as well.
Yeah, either
so
Ron, either Ron or his secretary will get back to you at that point.
My evil twin. So anyway, if we come back to the custom partition area, I said there's video tutorials, things. The key thing is, if you want to go in here, you can go into CP source, and then it's kind of structured the same way as that you would see within the UMS: apps, browser, multimedia, network, office, et cetera. So unified communications. And then with GitHub, it's cool. Whenever some new stuff comes in, you're going to see, here it goes. There's a Silverfort multi-factor authentication client. Someone wanted that. So last week or so, I put that together. But if we look in network, for example, you can say, I need an F5 VPN client, or the AWS VPN client. So if I went into here, you could see, hey, you need to grab the endpoint, your configuration file stuff, but then there's a build script there that would run and automatically build the VPN client for AWS. But what I want to do now is go into unified communications, and you can see, hey, we have different things: Teams, there's Signal, Slack, WebEx, et cetera. But let's go in and look at Zoom. So basically, with Zoom, it kind of gives some information about the size, things like that. There's also some customization. So if you were, a German client or a French client, you can customize the Zoom US comp file to say, hey, language is German or French, right? And some notes about how you would set that up. But if we look at the build script itself, what this build script does is basically you would take this build script, put it on your Ubuntu system, and run it. And basically all it's doing here, and we'll do a demo, and I'll actually run this script here on my Ubuntu system. But at the high level, it's just doing a wget to get the latest version of the Zoom deb client. IGEL OS doesn't have the xtest0 library, so I'm going to do an apt-get and download it. And then I make the directory, I extract those packages, and then here's some little code here. It just says, hey, if you want non-persistency, so that what that means is, hey, these settings that the user uses, when an IGEL OS, as you know, reboots by default, it's a read-only operating system. So anything that was stored in user home, when it reboots, disappears, right? So if you want persistency, this little piece here, and by default it sets it up, would preserve that after a reboot, right? So that's what that's doing. And then I do a wget to get all the other files from GitHub, and then it just builds it out. It figures out the version, and then it packages everything, and it creates a nice little zip file that has all the contents. You take that up to your UMS and file server and put it in. So that's kind of the high level. What I want to do now is I'm just going to switch over. As I said, first I'm going to show you the end results, and then we'll go in and dive into how the sausage is made, so to speak. So if
Hey,
I
Ron.
go over to, yeah, sure.
I was gonna say, does it make, do we want to take it to a poll and see if there's a certain application that everyone on the call is like, hey, I really want to see this. Would you be open to that?
Yeah. If it's available there, but my plan was to do Zoom. But if there's
Oh, we'll do
something
Zoom?
else someone wants to see, like Edge or whatever,
I'll tell you what, let's proceed with Zoom, and then I'll throw the poll out there. If there's a secondary one that everybody wants to see, I'll just throw some multiple choice in there.
Okay.
Just gauge interest. By the way, we had a
Okay.
question come in from Tina. Tina says, is there a preferred or more compatible, can't speak right now, compatible Linux distro for this? I can live with Ubuntu, but I usually use CentOS.
Yeah, so the basic gist is the IGEL OS 11 is IGEL's version of Linux, right? But we use libraries from Ubuntu 18.04. So if we go back, let's go back real quick to the build script. So if we look at this build for Zoom, right? The IGEL OS does not have this library. It's missing, right? So what this apt-get download does is it grabs that library. You've got to run it on Ubuntu 18.04, so you grab the right library. If you ran it on something else, that library might not exist, or it might be a version that isn't compatible with 18.04, right? So that's why you need to use an Ubuntu 18.04 system, because I'm dependent on grabbing any of the other libraries. If, for example, there wasn't a dependency and everything resided within this deb file, as long as you had a way to extract a deb file on another version of Linux, you could probably do it and it would be okay. But any dependencies, like in this case, it wouldn't work, because if you had something else, this library might not exist in that instance of Linux, right? Or the version of Linux can't open a deb file by default or whatever. So those are kind of the issues why you want to just do it on an 18.04 so that you grab the right dependencies and everything else. Hope that made sense.
It did. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that, Ron. And, I'm actually going to throw this little quick, just poll out there. You guys, it's multiple choice. I'm just curious, like, what you guys find interesting. And if there's one I didn't list on there, just throw it in the question and answer. I'm going to launch a poll here that you guys can just kind of answer. And basically, I'm just curious which custom partitions are important to you guys. Which ones are, in your environment that you're either a business critical that aren't included in IGEL OS. So yeah. So by all means, fill that out. And Ron, you can keep going. I'll just kind of watch that poll as it comes in.
Sure. The other one I'll show is like Nutanix Frame. For example, when Nutanix Frame joined the IGEL Ready program and stuff, and we joined their Nutanix Ready program, and building the Nutanix Frame client, we all decided between IGEL and Nutanix Frame is that we would just do that and collaborate in GitHub. And so let me show that real quick. Is basically, so what that meant was we put together the custom partition for Nutanix Frame. So if I go into CP source apps and see Nutanix Frame here, you can see that we built this. There's a builder for this, and there's some other notes. But basically, when a new version of Frame comes out, we just update. And actually, what Nutanix is doing is they did a fork of this. They make changes, so you can see Sasam wanted to update the Frame launcher. So, and this is from Frame, so we just collaborate directly with them. So they forked this, made some changes, did a pull request back to me. I reviewed it and added it in. So that whole workflow to update the Nutanix Frame, took me just, a couple of minutes, right? To say, yeah, here it is. And now you've got that. So you could run this build Frame and build the latest version of Frame as soon as it comes out from Frame. You're not waiting for IGEL or anyone else to do anything. You can just, as soon as the new version of Frame comes out, boom, run this script, grab it, and you're running the latest. Nothing else you need to interact with Frame or with IGEL. You can just do it, boom, and go. So anyway, that's kind of stuff there. And you can see kind of in the history of what happened with that, and those updates that that occurred, right? So anyway,
and if we're seeing an uptick in Frame a little bit over at XenTegra. People interested in it. I mean, it's a great platform. Maybe some of the market events are leading to this. There's obviously the main push we see is users at least having a strategy to get to Azure Virtual Desktop, whether they're going to use Citrix or VMware in that mix, or whether they're going to use something like Nerdio. But Frame has its place, and it does seem to be kind of becoming a little bit more in demand, which is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
So Ron, we did get some results. Looks like most of the people have answered on the calls. Thank you guys for doing that. You're not going to believe this, but 1 and 2 on the list are Microsoft applications. Go figure. Microsoft applications in Linux. So the big two here. Teams comes in at number 1. 5 out of 6 people who answered the poll, 83% said Teams. 67% won Edge. And
Okay.
I've personally now worked with a few customers in the last 2 months that said, yeah, we want Edge on all of our IGEL endpoints. It's pretty cool to see Microsoft with Linux applications, A, and B, customer demand is saying, hey, we want this.
Yeah, so I'll switch from doing Zoom and I'll do Edge. And the reason what I like about Edge too is that from a Microsoft point of view, having Teams and all of the Office 365, all of that stuff, Microsoft's testing that with Edge, and it just all works, right? So actually, on my own personal laptop for IGEL is a Dynabook, and that's what I'll shadow over to, and you can see all of the stuff I have on my personal laptop. But I have Edge, and I use Edge to run my team sessions, to run the Office 365, all of that stuff right from that device without needing a VDI backend. It all just, with Edge, it all just works. Collaboration just all works. Anyway, the other one I wanted to show was I had a medical client that wanted to be able to view medical images and stuff, and they said, hey, we use this DICOM, Aliza DICOM viewer. There's a Linux version of that. Can you package that up? And so so basically this medical image viewer, they had a workflow where they just wanted to basically have some kiosk IGEL devices tied to these images and stuff, and be able to view it natively just on the endpoint without going through a VDI session. So anyway, that was another image or a custom partition that we did for a hospital. So anyway.
Hey, Ron, so 2 questions came in. I answered the one via text, but I'll just mention it here. David asked if XenTegra has done a webinar on Nutanix Frame. I'm sure we have, just so everyone knows. If not, I'm going to make that suggestion internally. We need to have that webinar. But Rakesh also asked, does Sync work with Edge? And I think you mentioned, Ron, you're going to go with Edge here. Is that are we doing Teams or Edge?
We're going to do Edge, right?
Edge, perfect.
So
okay.
So basically, with the Edge browser and getting to that stuff, you can see any of the stuff that you have saved into your OneDrive just from the browser, right? And stuff like that. There isn't a OneDrive client that I'm aware of yet for Linux to sync all of that data, and you may not want to sync all of that. Normally, the IGEL devices, if it's a thin client or whatever, only has a certain amount of storage on it as well. But if you had a fatter client and stuff, you could do that.
And
so
can
anyway,
I add to that, Ron, real quick?
Sure.
Because I don't have an official answer on this, obviously, but kind of Rakesh, to the point of 5 years ago, Microsoft would have never developed a Linux application. Now, 2 of their core applications, Teams and Edge, there's a Linux client that they fully support. And well, I don't know if they fully support them yet. They started in beta, but I mean, there's huge demand. Tons of people are using them. They're very stable. And so to me, that is a sign of where Microsoft's headed. So there may not be certain functionality today, but the trends are moving in the right direction. I'm hoping there's a day where Microsoft has all of their applications, their whole suite. Obviously, you can do it through a browser, but it would be kind of cool to do things like Word and Excel and PowerPoint locally. So anyway, that's just a little speculation on my part. But go ahead, Ron. Sorry to cut you off there.
Yeah, so anyway, within apps, there's a ton of different apps that we've done. I showed that medical image viewer, you know, things like that. There's anyway, tons of different stuff. There's several Microsoft things I've done. Like we had one client that wanted, you know, the .NET runtime, right, or PowerShell or Visual Studio. You could run Visual Studio code and you know, and have that there as well. So anyway, tons of things there. So what I want to do now is we're going to go ahead and do Edge. So let me go ahead and go back to my custom unified communications. So oops, I actually want to go into browsers. And so you can see we've got Chrome, we've got Edge beta, and we also have the stable. So for this case, we're just going to do the stable version. And there's a build script here. So this is the basic build script you have. You can say raw, and I can copy that. Now let me go to my Ubuntu system.
It looks like you're making a directory for Edge here.
Sorry. So I'm making a directory for Edge. So I'm just like in downloads. I CD'd into Edge. Now I'm going to do a wget and then that file.
Now for anyone watching, Ron, for anyone watching who says, "Oh man, do I need to know Linux command line?" Technically, you could do this through just downloading the file, right, and drag it and drop it into a Linux folder. But you're probably going to need to at least know how to run the file. Is that an accurate statement from the terminal?
Yeah. And those little videos will show that as well. Sorry,
Perfect.
I'll back up. So my background, you know, I'm, as you said, 30 plus years, but back in the early 80s, you know, when I was in school and everything we did was on Unix, right? So it was cool when I came over to IGEL, then all of the stuff I'm doing here is just muscle memory from when I was like 19 years old, so 18 or 19 years old. So, you know, you learn stuff young, you can remember that and go. So, but anyway, I'm 58 now. So, so basically I'm just making it executable here on this. And what I'm going to do is actually edit the file. And what I want to do is, because I want to just single step through it so you can see again, how the sausage is made in the script. So I'm going to use my favorite editor, Vi, and so basically this set -x is just basically going to echo everything that's going to run from the script. And this trap debug is just going to say, I'm single stepping this, so I need to hit a carriage return after each thing. So the basic gist of what's going to happen in this script, let me go back to this screen here, is that the first thing I'm going to do, you know, again, we need an Ubuntu 18.04 system. And then what this is doing is make sure that the curl and unzip are set up on your instance. And now what I'm actually doing on this line here, these two lines 10 and 11, is I'm actually tying into the Microsoft Package Manager. And I'm telling it, hey, let's go ahead and tie into that. It's a Deb system, AMD 64, and I'm just going to look at the packages out of the Microsoft repo for Edge and get the stable main version, right? So that's all I'm doing from that. And then basically, all I'm doing in here is I'm doing an apt-get to download Edge stable. And then again, Edge is on the IGEL endpoint, it's missing this one library, libatomic1. So then I'm doing an apt-get to download that missing library. Then, and if you look at all my scripts, then once this stuff here is a little bit different for everyone, but once you get past that, this make directory, extract, all of that stuff is going to look pretty much exactly the same as any other package. And so it's very simple to set up. So when I build something new, I just say, hey, this looks similar to something I've done before. So then I just copy that folder, make changes to change that name from foo to goo, whatever the name was, and then I'm pretty much done. So I can rip through adding a new application very quickly. So in this case here, it's just going through to say, okay, I want some persistency here. So I'm saying, hey, Microsoft stores some .config.local stuff here. and et cetera. So that's all it kind of does.
And,
Let's
you
go
know,
back.
it's
Go
worth
ahead.
mentioning here, Ron, that, you know, everything you just walked through, you know, is historically, like if you wanted to do this before the custom partition store existed, you would actually have to manually kind of walk through those steps of like downloading, finding which libraries, compiling things, then packaging it up. The beauty is, and you're walking through how these are built, the users now, all they have to do, I mean, if they want to geek out and look through this, they can, and they can kind of learn through it. But if somebody is like, I don't even want to learn all this stuff, they don't even need to. If it lives on the IGEL CP store, which is amazing, the work's already been done. All they need to do is download the script, execute it. And so kudos to you on that, man. I really think this is a big deal for a lot of customers. By the way, did have a question come in. Mike Ferger asked, how you doing, Mike? He says, how would the update process work for Edge once it's built?
Yeah. So basically from the update, and I'll show that when I get into my UMS system, but basically one of the things in the profile that you set up with IGEL is and you put it in is you say auto update true or false, and you just say true. So then your workflow for adding that to the UMS or the file server is that the INF file has the version in it, right? And so when the IGEL device either boots up or checks, it looks at the INF file and it says, hey, the version that I just downloaded, the version number that was in the INF file, does it match what I currently have on my system? If it does, I do nothing. If it doesn't, then I'm going to go grab the tarbz2 file, bring it down, and do an update. So that's basically it. And so this script and this automation takes care of updating that. So this little piece of code right here, lines 46 through 56, basically what this does is it goes ahead and cracks open the deb file, and then it extracts a control file out of that, and then it grabs the version out of the control file and sets version to that. And then this little set here edits the INF file, Edge Stable INF, to have that version. So then when you update your UMS, your file server with that INF file, then that's how it figures it out. So you don't have to change anything. All you do is replace the INF and the tarbz2 file for Edge. The next time the client hits it, it compares that version in the INF and says, oh, it's different. I'm grabbing it, I'm putting it in. That's it. Very simple.
Yeah.
Very simple.
Very
So,
good. Well, thanks for that question,
cool.
Mike.
Yeah.
Let's jump into it, man. Let's
do it. Let's see how the sausage is made here.
There we go.
So now what I've got is I've grabbed the build file from GitHub. I've dropped it here onto my Ubuntu system. I've got it all set up. So now if I'm going to run it, I'm just going to remember I went in and I edited the file and I uncommented lines 2 and 3 so that it's going to single step through it for us. Okay. So let's see here. Anyway, so now I've got that. So now I'm just gonna run it. So what I'm doing is // by default, the current directory isn't in your path, right? So // just says grab this file and run it. So now we can see we got trap debug and read. So I'm just going to hit carriage return here. Now it wants to just check and make sure curl is on the system. So I need to make sure that's it. So anyway, now it's just going through, and so what it's done now is it's done that curl, and basically it's just grabbing this file, and then we're adding that, and we're adding this now to the package manager, and we're updating that, make sure, hey, everything's great. So now when I issue the command up here to do an apt-get download Microsoft Edge, since we got the package manager set up for Microsoft, it'll be able to find Microsoft Edge stable because we've added Microsoft Package Manager into our system. So that's basically what it's going to do here, let's see, get an update here, give it a second. So it's just reading all the package lists and stuff like that that I've added in. Okay, so we've got that. So now I'm doing a make dir. So I'm making a directory called build tar. I'm cd into that directory. And now I'm doing an apt-get download of Microsoft Edge stable. So it's grabbing it. We can see, oh, it's 121 meg in size, and it's going very slow.
I love the internet.
Yeah.
Always slow when you.
Well, the nice thing when
don't
you
want
run the script or you have the automation to run, it just runs in the background. So you don't really care how long it takes. So, so unfortunately, we have a minute and some time to.
Well, it's not a small application. What is it? It shows the
Well,
size there. It's 121
well, it's 121 meg, but it's really with Microsoft Site being slow. So if I was doing Zoom similar in size, it takes like 10 seconds, to download it. So this here is
soft dig at Microsoft's download servers.
Yeah, I noticed this like a week or so ago that it was kind of running a little slow. But I've got like, I don't know, I think my download speed here to my home is like 100 megabit or something like that. It's pretty good. Anyway, so
maybe you need Tesla. What is it? Starlink. They're
well, no, I mean it's still pretty. My downloads is really good. It's something with Microsoft Site, but anyway. So we'll let this.
So David with a dunk on IGEL says maybe it's hosted where IGEL download site is. It's crazy slow too.
Oh yeah. So some of our stuff, yeah, the same thing like with private builds or builds. I just do a wget there and just let it run in the background, and then I just add it in. So I don't really notice how long it takes because it just runs in the background.
I believe IGEL's hosted on Azure, if I'm not mistaken. I thought I might be speaking out of school here, David. I don't know, but we're just going to put the blame on Microsoft again.
No, I'm sure. So anyway, so it's almost done here. So it's finished that one. Now it's going to do that wget to get that missing library. So that's done. That was real small. Now I'm going to make a directory called custom edge stable. Now I'm extracting that deb package into edge stable. So that's that 121 meg file. So that's done. Now I'm going to extract that missing library. That's done. So now what I'm doing is in IGEL, there's this in user share applications. All I really need to do is move that to applications.mime, and the MIME types and everything are picked up right. Now what I'm doing is setting up for persistency. So, and I'll show you the file that links it in. So basically IGEL OS, as I said, is a read-only file system. So what we do in these custom partitions, what I do is I have this init script, and I'll show you the contents of the init script in a second, is that it just rips through there and it links everything into the file system. So it looks like it's just native in, /user home config Microsoft Edge, right? Or any missing libraries. It's just symbolically, it's just linked into the /custom area. So that little init script links it all in. So it all looks like it's part of the IGEL operating system. So anyway, so I have a couple of those things I want to set up there. Now what it did was I'm going to go back up here and I'll show you here. So inside of this area here in the target, you can see there's that edge stable INF file. So what it basically does is have the stuff say, hey, the file is called this, the version number. I just put a version at one point. I think right now for Edge, I think we're up to like 104 number, not 96. But my little build script will look at this version and just change it on the fly when it looks for it. The other thing that in the build, script, I have this init script that I was telling you about and some app armor logic here to allow things to run. But if I look at this init script, basically, when I deploy the custom partition to the endpoint, and I'll show you this in the UMS, is that it kicks off this init script and it uses init. So basically what it does here is it kind of cleans up some stuff, sets permissions, but this is the secret sauce of the script, is this little loop right here. So basically what it's doing is it's saying within the custom partition, read each file that's in there, and then basically this little logic here is the dark art here is that it figures it out, looks at it, and then it links it into the IGEL file system. So that's kind of the key piece of code in the init script to link everything into the file system. Since Microsoft Edge is a Chromium-based application, there's a sandbox and set the permissions right on that. And then I changed owner this for user home so that the user has the rights to do updates and changes within that. So that's kind of the gist there. So let's go back. So this wget gets that zip file of all those files. Now I've exploded it up. So here you can see there was the INF file is here. There's that init script and stuff. So I did a wget to grab all those files. And then now I'm going ahead and setting up my app armor stuff. And then now I'm copying over or moving over the edge table init script into custom. I'm CD in the custom. Now in get version, now I'm going to crack open the dev file and grab the version out of the dev file to update that INF file. So then I extract the that out, and then I'm doing a tar to extract the control file, and I'm just grabbing control. And then I grep for the version of the control file. Oh, I can see it's actually for stable, here's this version, 103.0. The 104 version was the beta version. So anyway, it's grabbing version, and now it's going to go ahead and I'm going to edit that as a string editor, and I'm just going to say, hey, search the INF file and replace version with the version number. So now I've got the INF file and it's updated with the right version. Now I'm just kicking off, I'm creating the tarbz2 file. So I'm taking all those files and I'm now creating the tarbz file. And so that's just going to take a minute to run here.
Hey, Ron, question while that's going. Because I'm thinking about this, we probably have a range of different levels of experience with IGEL represented in the attendees today. So we probably have people who I see, obviously some names I know here, and I think David has dunked on us twice now, so he's been around IGEL a little bit, just a little while. But for somebody who's like, hey, I don't know Linux, we're going through this obviously point by point, and it's nice to do this because we have people who they really want to know how this sausage is being made, right? We'd like to keep these more technical. But for the guy who's like, hey, look, I'm an IGEL admin. Do I need to know all this stuff? I just want to say from the outset, the answer is no, right? I mean, the beauty of this is, and you run that command and all this stuff automates. Someone asked me for Edge, I think it was like 2 weeks ago. We do what's called the IGEL Fast Track POC at XenTegra, where we have a hosted environment. We'll do like, hey, here's a workflow, this many devices. If you're interested, anyone on the call is interested in that, let us know. So somebody asked for Edge, and I was able to just go out here, grab your script. I had it in about, it felt like 5 minutes. Threw it up on my share, pushed it out to them. It was one of the easiest things I've ever done. I should have sent you a thank you card in that moment, actually, Ron. It saved me a lot of time.
Yeah. No, it saves me a lot of time too. So I finished kind of going through this. The ideal thing is, from an IGEL and basic managing of the UMS and things like that. I've had clients that just said, hey, I remember which client was that just said, I took a fresh out right out of high school, trained her, she had some computer science stuff she did in high school. We spent, 2 weeks, 3 weeks training her on that. And she's now UMS admin. So it's the IGEL UMS, the setup, the stuff, the run books. They built a run book for her and all of that stuff. So you can take a fresh out right out of high school, a couple of weeks of training, and they're IGEL UMS admin.
Yeah, it's really cool. And so a couple comments. Well, David has a comment. Rakesh has a couple questions. One of the questions, questions was, hey, do I need to hire a Linux guy to support this? Obviously, the answer is no, you don't. I mean, Ron just answered that, and that's the beauty of it. So even on these custom partitions, you don't. I mean, it's really and if it doesn't live in that custom partition directory, reach out to XenTegra. We'd be glad to help you build one out. Or reach out to Ron or his assistant on the IGEL community. They'll make it happen for you too, potentially. I don't want to give up your labor there, Ron, but
no, yeah.
So that was Rakesh's question. David, and this is surprising actually, because David, is well known in the IGEL community, and David said he's been around IGEL 4 to 5 years, and he hasn't ever needed a custom partition. He wants to, but he just hasn't had a need. So sometimes I make the assumption like, hey, someone's been around IGEL forever. They may not have ever really worked with custom partition. So it's a great point, David.
Yeah, I mean, you can configure that and go. And then the staffing model, I mean, we have a large retailer, the staffing model is like one full-time equivalent for every 30,000, devices, right? We have others that are doing even more than that with that. But with the UMS and how you build out your workflows and your directories and all of that stuff, you can pretty much automate all the workflows and new devices adding and updates and things like that. That once you wire this thing up, you have someone like XenTegra help wire this up, document it, document the run book and stuff like that. You could hand that to a fresh out right out of high school, and she could run it, right, and go. So it's very easy, simple to set up. So
that's a great point. That's usually our engagement, to be honest. I mean, we usually come in, we set we'll help you build the environment. We have guys that do that, and then once we document and deliver it, if you want to, some customers are like, hey, we want a block of hours from you guys for you to come in. But sometimes customers are like, hey, thank you for doing that. I have caught the bug now. I'm an IGEL enthusiast, and they just run with it. So it's pretty cool. I see Chris Feeney is joined, by the way. Chris, welcome.
Hey, gang. Sorry, I was late. I had some other calls that were overlapping, but I didn't want to miss this exciting topic. So I see Ron's got his build box up, which is an amazing thing that he's demonstrated here. Have you guys built one or about to do the fancy 5 seconds build process?
Well, we took Microsoft. We did a poll. I was going to do Zoom. And we did a poll, and they actually wanted to see either Teams or Edge, and I just grabbed Edge and took the build script from GitHub, brought it over. I edited the build script so that I uncommented lines 2 and 3 to allow us to debug or single step the script, and we just finished going through the single step of stepping through the script so I could explain how the sausage was made step by step. So you just join now. So now what we've got is this Microsoft Edge stable zip file. You copy that up, and when you open it up, then basically what you'll see in here in the custom partition, when we look at if we look at what's inside of a zip file, you have this. You have basically IGEL. This contains the UMS profile. Target contains the INF and the tarbz2 file and stuff. So basically when you take that up to your UMS or your file server and open up the zip file, you'll take the profile, you'll import that into your UMS, and then the INF and tar files, you add that to your UMS or your file server, and you're ready to go. So we're getting ready now to move over to my UMS system. And what I wanted to do first was just kind of show you the end results of that. So what I'm going to do is, built into the UMS is the ability, for free to securely shadow your devices and stuff. And when you look at devices here, you can create folders, similar like in Active Directory OUs. You could have, country, state, city, department, floor, building. If you're in a hospital, you could have, this is the ER or whatever, or whatever, and have those devices. Once you drop a device into a folder, it inherits stuff. So you have this indirectly assigned objects. So in this case, I've actually got my shadowing set up, and I have a profile here with Citrix to add network printers. So basically what this profile would do is just go out, scan the network for printers, and add them into IGEL, right? You can also define, there's different profiles that we've had set up to automate different things. So if you're in a hospital and in the ER area, you could define, hey, if this device is in this area or this IP address or whatever, you could say, these are the printers to add. So it could automatically add the right printers and get it all set up just based on what you know. So again, with IGEL, again, with me, as I was saying, if I have to do something manually more than once, I'm going to automate it, right? So anyway, so
that's what I love about you, Ron.
Yeah. Hey, I like riding my bike. I don't want to be working late at night building something. I'll automate it, man, and
there
just
you
let
go.
it run.
That's what I'm talking about. That's the
so
attitude.
Anyway, so with this folder here, the best practice is you assign it to a folder, and when the device goes in here, it inherits it. But in my little demo environment, you also have the ability to directly assign objects to a device. So since my little building and testing, I have a bunch of stuff that I just did here.
So,
I'm sorry, Chris?
Yeah, I was going to say, so there's a couple of different approaches to assigning the custom partitions. There's several ways, right? You've got, here's a profile, and that profile says, where do I go to get the file, the INF or the BZ2 essentially that I'm going to install, that could be hosted on the UMS and the UMS file transfer directory, for example, or somewhere else. There's also the files option, which I've seen you do before, where you can upload the file there, and then, assuming, the device can reach the UMS transfer file, they can just go there. So there's a couple of different ways to basically do the same thing. The profile would still say, go here, right? I just want to make, look at different approaches there so people can understand. So,
I think it's probably a good segue too, because I mean, it's, so we have our, we have the file, right? We have the zip file that was created with that script, right? And to your point, Ron, if we open that zip file, there's really three important files in there, right? There's the profile. It's usually an XML file. We'll say like profile.xml. That's what we're gonna import that up in the system area and import the profile. The other piece is the profile is just pointing your device and saying, go download this, right? And that's two files, the INF and the tar.bz2. Are we gonna import that in this UMS, this actual environment here?
Well, I'll show the steps to do that, and then I'll just cancel out since I already have it here. But what I wanted to show first before going in there was I was just going to shadow over to my laptop, and you can see. So on this laptop here, I have this Ron Master CP. So this is the CP from, it's got a ton of stuff in it. We'll crack that open and look at that profile. But right now I'm just going to go ahead and shadow over to that device and connect. And so this is my Dynabook laptop, and you're going to say, wow, look at all this stuff. So basically what I did was that Ron CP, I have a bunch of different custom partitions that I kind of rolled into one profile. So anyway, I like to run the beta edge so I can just see the latest stuff when it's coming. But I got Edge, I got Teams, I got Zoom, I've got WebEx, I've got Spotify, I got a password manager. Yeah. I got a password manager on this device. I've got my favorite file manager that I like to use. I got the Nutanix Frame custom partition. I've got a video VLC for video viewer. Synergy. What Synergy is an app that allow you to share multiple devices and with one screen and keyboard, basically move between those devices. So we got like a financial trading firm, right? That said, hey, I need like 12 displays. Well, you're not going to find to build out a device that has 12 displays and other video cards might not be the best thing to do, but you could take a bunch of, HP thin clients, T640s, each one's got 4 displays, grab 3 of those and use Synergy, and you can pop between all of those 12 displays across 3 devices, right? So anyway,
cool.
different stuff.
All with
Speed
one
crunch.
keyboard and mouse.
Yeah, exactly.
And by the way, this is the part I love, right? So we're going to get into this in a little bit, the auto update. So I knew that you had just updated some of the CPs. I've got a UD Pocket. I just booted into my Lenovo laptop, and as soon as it gets on the internet, it immediately recognizes that you've just pushed out a new update of something, right? And I think it's pulling down both. It's probably pulling down Edge and Zoom or something, right? But
Right.
that's the part I love about this that we'll show here in a minute, the auto update feature, which is really cool.
Right. The other thing I've got is speed crunch. So if you want to have a nice little calculator here, so 5 times 5 equals, and then, it's basically, so they wanted, customer had, hey, we want a nice calculator, on the screen, whatever. So, and they're like, hey, how about this as a custom partition? So that's up there on GitHub. So you could just run that build script and in less than a minute have that custom partition. There's also one for the, for the camera and stuff like that too, to do some camera editing or fine tuning. Anyway, so that's the gist. So if I click on Zoom, you can see when Zoom opens up, and it's 5.11.3, it's the latest version, right? So my build automation that I showed you earlier runs, and that was probably a week or so ago that 5.11.3 came out. The build automation built it, and then I just had my workflow then to add it into the UMS, and you got the latest version. Anyway.
Lo and behold, I've got a 5.11.3 as we talk. Fantastic. I love it.
See, you're on the same thing, because we're sharing our UMS. So anyway, so I just wanted to kind of show what that endpoint looks like. Now what I want to do is crack open this master CP here. So basically, you've got a profile. So again, like in the Edge one, if I scroll up here, you'll see Microsoft Edge Stable CP. So if we would have imported that XML file, then you would basically get this profile here. And let's look at it real quick. So basically in IGEL, as you may know, there's like 7,000 plus settings that you can do. And so what we do with these profiles is, and best practices is to kind of keep it specific for a task. So if you're doing a Microsoft AVD or Citrix or whatever, you would go in and just say, hey, this profile is going to do this specific task. And then you kind of build them up, and assign them out. So if you need to debug something in a profile, you're only, debugging that one little piece. You wouldn't combine everything into one profile, and because it's not a best practice, you can't figure out what's going on. But anyway, when you open a profile, it's color coded. So you can see, hey, if it's white, there was no changes in there. But inside of here, I see system has changed, it's blue. Firmware customization, custom partition. You can see, okay, I created a custom partition of 800 meg. And then I'm telling the download, here's that automatic update. And you say yes. So basically, when, as Chris was saying, or we were saying earlier, is that when the IGEL device boots up, it checks and it says, okay, I've got this thing's edge stable. It looks at that INF file and says, hey, is my version, the same as that one there? If it's different, then it's going to follow the logic that's in here. And in this case, I'm going to use HTTPS, and I'm basically grabbing that file and then whatever. And then here's kind of that key. Remember, I showed you that init script and how it links it into the file system. So this initial action would run that init script with init. So it would link everything in the custom folder into the file system. So it looks like it's part of the file system. If you were to remove it, this stop thing here would unlink it and clean everything up. So that's kind of the basic gist around that profile. What I want to do now, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Profile, that profile, just to be clear, right? So if you went back to the that Linux box for just a quick second, Ron, where we created the zip file, and if you wouldn't mind just throwing that open, just so everyone can kind of see that, like if you just kind of went into the file explorer and just took a look at that.
I'm going to do this.
Perfect.
Okay.
So there you go. So you'll see what it, there's two main folders. You have IGEL, which is where your profile lives. And you have target, which is where the INF and your tar.bz2 file. And the tarball file is really that's the magic. That is the packaged application. But in the UMS, it's really simple to import it, right? I mean, to import the profile, you just go up to system and import it, and boom, it's there.
So that's where I want to pause. So there's a couple ways where how do you manage those files and stuff, like particularly the INF and BZ2. So two approaches. One, you grab those from there, right? And you can using like Windows Explorer, for example, you could copy them into UMS file transfer, whatever.
In the UMS server, you're saying? Chris,
yeah,
right?
just using the Windows file system to place them there, and then the profile points at that. Or you could use the UMS in the files option, which we'll pull here in a second. You say, I'm just going to pick one here, Ron, that we've got, and you say, I'm going to bring a new file in, and I know where it's located. I'm going to grab it from here, and then I'm going to place it. Yeah, so he's got his.
So if I had that opened up, I would just go in there, grab the file, and just say open and add the file, right?
Yeah, and then you can tell it where you want it to be placed. For example, yeah, right here. Say I want it to, like, I create like a custom partitions folder, for example, and I just put all of them in there. But that's really just how you want to organize it.
Right.
So you could leverage that, say, hey, here's it is, and then if you do the update, like I just updated the INF and the BZ2, I think, Ron, if I'm not mistaken, you just replace those same files, and then the profile says, hey, if there's a new version of it.
Yep.
Got it.
Yeah. So if we go back to, I showed you my laptop, my Dynabook laptop with all that on it, and what I'm doing now is just cracking open the profile for this master CP. So if I go into System, Custom Partition, you can see I created an 11 gig partition. So on a normal thin client, you can't do that because you might only have 8 gig of space or something, right? But if you've got a laptop,
that's right.
So be careful. Don't come any closer or I'll shoot. Boom. No. Is that, with the laptop, then you've got more disk space, right? And today with IGEL 11, when it creates the partition and stuff for IGEL 11, if it'll create it as big as storage as you have, or up to 16 gig. So that's kind of a limitation right there. So I've just said, hey, I'm going to grab everything else that's left on it, which is about 11 gig, and I'm going to create this big partition. And then in the downloads, then you can see, hey, all I did was just do a plus sign, and I just said, let me grab all the ones I want to have. So there's Edge, Teams, 7 Signal, Zoom, WebEx, Spotify, my password manager, file manager, Frame, Iced, which is just a Java, the Java stuff.
Java, yeah, the Java web start if you want to launch and pull up the UMS console on the IGEL.
Yeah, exactly. And then my guys, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, because we had a question come in from Rakesh where he asked, does each application have its own custom partition? I think what you're seeing here is really kind of answering that question, but do you want to kind of
you would keep it modular. So all you would do is you run the automation to build whatever you wanted. So if you wanted Microsoft Edge, Zoom, and maybe that medical image viewer, then you could grab those 3, and then you would basically just create a new profile that would have those 3 items in it. So you just do a plus and just say, hey, I'm going to add Edge, Teams, in the medical image viewer, right? And then you're basically set up.
So let me make sure I have that right, Ron. So if let's say I had 5 applications I needed, I need Edge and Teams and whatever, 3 other ones. Mm-hmm. I could use your scripting that you've created that'll automatically pull new versions of each one. And then all I need is one IGEL profile, really, that basically has all of them referenced in there. And correct. That's it.
Yeah, that's how I do it to see it. The other option you could do is you could create one profile that just that just does this, you know, creates a partition of a certain size, right? Then you could create separate profiles that just had each one of those apps, but not tell it to try to recreate another partition. Because basically with IGEL OS/custom is you can only create one custom partition, right? And so some people kind of do it either way. Simple run, I just like to combine it into one, and I know here's everything that's in there and not have other dependencies to hunt for.
Yeah,
So,
this is a great point. So this is I've seen different approaches. This simple run approach. There's also like, if you know, like, all right, some departments may need different custom partitions, right? You could go the route and create, you know, maybe a combined profile and then separate them out. Like, you know, maybe everybody has Teams and Zoom and whatever, and then somebody else gets something else. Or using the IGEL master profile, you can say my master profile is gonna, you know, be built, and it's gonna have the size of the partition across the board, right? If you know that all your machines are gonna be able to handle 5 gig custom partition, you can have a master profile that controls that size, and then have these regular profiles with the combined or individual, so different ways, so that you don't, so you basically don't get into a situation where one profile, you know, is trying to, you know, maybe make it bigger or smaller, whatever. The custom master profile will control that size. So
there's different ways to do it, you know. And again, the simple run one is I'm just gonna have a couple, you know, have it defined like this. But anyway, it's different ways to do it, you know. Tomato, tomato.
Real quick, guys, another question came in. By the way, David said he's looking into Synergy. I wanted to mention that because I had the same thought, David. When you were showing that application, that's pretty sweet. I'm going to take a look at that. But Rakesh had a follow-up question. Now, this is more complex. He says, can we grant access to these custom partitions with AD groups? And I believe the answer is yes, if you want to use shared workspace in conjunction with the custom partitions. But I'll let you guys go ahead and tackle that one.
Chris, you want to say something here? I'm not quite
sure. So in terms of the profile, a profile is going to control the custom partition or any other feature that is applied to the device. So if you want to assign to AD groups, generally you're talking about users, where the feature of IGEL that allows you to assign a profile to a user or a group of users is called shared workplace. And when you turn it on, then you have to create a connection to AD from within UMS, so we can actually see the AD structure, the OUs, the people, and that type of thing. And then once that's there, then you have the ability to assign profiles to the user. Now, what that means is that when you enable that for a workstation, the user is going to walk up and they're going to see a login screen. Whereas if Ron minimizes the UMS, for example, by default you'll just boot up and you'll see the IGEL desktop and no login screen, and then you know you'd log into whatever workspace you're getting to, whatever. So that share workplace basically puts a login, an AD login, essentially. User types in username and password, or if you're using smart cards, you can insert your card, type in your PIN, and get logged in. So that's what that would do.
Yeah. So the basic thing, what I'd recommend there is, remember earlier in the session, I was talking about custom partitions and use cases for business continuity or DR, right? So for example, if you deployed, so say you wanted Edge and Zoom, for example, deployed, but only enabled for certain users or during a business continuity or DR, what I'd recommend you do is you would build out a CP and deploy it, and deploy what you want. But in the custom application, so you see in this one, custom applications, I'm showing, hey, poke Edge and Teams and Zoom all onto the desktop or in your start menu. For that shared workspace, what I would do is go ahead and deploy it all, but don't have the custom applications poked out so the user could see them, right? Or get to them. But then build a profile. Frame. Yeah, but then so you could deploy like Nutanix Frame and Teams and Edge, and it's already deployed on the endpoint. The client doesn't, the end user doesn't know. But when the user logs in, you could have a profile that says, hey, I am in HR, and the HR department is using Nutanix Frame, right? So all you would do then is just say, hey, that you have a separate profile that would just poke Nutanix Frame application onto the desktop, or set it up to auto start or something like that. So that when I log in and it just says, okay, you're part of HR, you get Frame. So then Frame appears on the desktop, just the icon. So there isn't much of a change. I don't think you would want to try to deploy custom partitions on the fly as a user logs in, because how big they are, how much you'd have to wait. You'd want to pre-deploy and then just have a profile that just pops up the icon, which is, very small profile, which is, a couple of K in size, right? And you're done.
Yeah, if you go and expand the Nutanix Frame custom app on the left side there. So I think it's the desktop integration. So this is, you could do it like what he would say, has separate profile that says references this, and then says, all right, put an icon on desktop. Or if it's a DR situation, knowing it's still there, but if something happens, you immediately modify the profile and you click desktop or start menu or quick start panel or something, and then you just push it out, and now the user sees an icon for Nutanix Frame or whatever.
Right.
And nothing's really changed other than there it is. Where'd that come from? It's already been there. You just didn't know it. So
right.
Yeah, that's
your
brilliant.
DR, you could build that profile for a DR event, right? You could say, DR event or whatever you want to call the profile. So then basically in your run book or whatever is you say, hey, my backend is out. Our workflow steps is when the backend is out, we're going to send a notification out, if it's text or a page or whatever it is, right, out on this. And then your workflow here in the UMS is going to say that DR profile, you're going to assign it to everybody, and then magically Zoom appears on the desktop everywhere, right? And hey, we're having an issue in the back end. You're going to see an icon on the desktop called Zoom. Click on that, or Edge. Click on that, and you can continue to work. When the DR event is over or whatever, then you would just take that profile and remove it, and then that would go away from the desktop, and the user wouldn't see Zoom anymore on the desktop. They would go through their Citrix or AVD or VMware Horizon session, right? So
Yeah,
a cool different things
that's
you
brilliant.
can do around that. Yeah,
I love that. I mean, I think, and Rakesh, so the short answer is absolutely yes, you can do that. As we kind of talked through that, it's really cool. Like if you had, let's say your organization needs 5 custom partitions total, but not every user needs every one of them. You could use shared workplace to basically do that's giving users profiles based on their AD, who they are in AD. But you would have all 5 of them downloaded and embedded into each OS, but only certain users would be able to see them, which is pretty awesome. So yeah, I mean that's a really great use case.
right.
So thanks for that, guys.
Again, and again, anything you want to do, I mean, with your partners Integra, and say, hey, you had Integra help you build this out, get it all set up your run book, all of that stuff. If you want to make a change, you could work with Integra and say, hey, we want to have this, from a DR event or whatever, we want to have this. Or later, if you have some kind of an outage, your root cause analysis, you could look at that and say, hey, coming out of the root cause analysis for this outage, here's our recommendations. And on the IGEL devices, we want to do A, B, and C, right? So then go ahead and wire that up or get with XenTegra or whatever to help you get that set up for that based on that. So it's always, you're ready to go. So then you can basically have an environment without having to build, extra, back end to have 5 nines. You could say, I can still reach 5 nines availability by doing this. And on the IGEL endpoints, we're going to poke out Zoom or Edge or something so that, your availability is there, right? So anyway.
Yeah, a classic scenario. We had a situation where somebody's Citrix environment on-prem went down. They weren't in the cloud yet, but they were already using O365. And in order to service their customers, they just pushed out an icon for Firefox, I think, and just office.com and had them, at least be able to check emails and that type of thing while they're waiting for Citrix to come back online. That was one situation. Ron mentioned it earlier, like a notification, a feature that's been in the product for a long time that you can do from your message. You can actually send a notification out from here to a device. I don't know how many in the audience are using that feature, but I know that there was one scenario that we heard about. I think it was down in Texas, where they had some product that they were using, and then when they learned that IGEL had the ability to, I think it's update, other commands, send message or something like that, then you get, there's templates that you can build. If you drop that empty template down, you can kind of see there's sort of exactly, but you can kind of create your own. There's a whole section in the UMS. If click that empty template drop down, you'll see some other ones there. Some of my favorites, the error alert, yeah, grab the alert one. I think that's yeah, whatever, just something major alert, whatever. And you could push this out and use this to just send out a message that goes out to your users and let them know that, hey, look for this or whatever, and you can customize it, as you can see here. So again, a feature that's been in there, not sure, one of those 7,000 settings.
So guys, I want to do a quick time check here, because we're at about a little past 20 of. So we got about 20 minutes left to go. Ron, I don't know if there's anything else you were planning to show, but I definitely want to continue to keep this open for questions, guys. If there's any questions you have, definitely, we've had a lot of great back and forth. I see there's 15 questions, which is awesome. By all means, anything you're wondering about this feature, anything you want to see us do while we're all here. I mean, this is time to ask. We have the right people in the room with Ron and Chris here. So I just wanted to give a quick time check here, because we're unfortunately running out.
While we're waiting for questions to emerge, I've heard, I don't know if I've seen this yet, but when this is sort of where things are going with OS 12, the custom partitions of OS 11 will become the app portal, app store, if you will, sorry, Apple, of tomorrow. But the way that it's going to be done, I think I've heard that our engineering built a tool where you can grab some Linux package and then run it through this tool, and it'll tell you what missing libraries or what missing pieces are done, that Ron probably showed earlier, where it knows, oh, I need to go grab this too before I can build a package, kind of thing. So I haven't seen that live, but I've heard that utility is going to be out there for I guess scenarios where you want to build your own app, that type of thing. So a lot of cool stuff coming, but what we've got here is already amazing. I hope you have appreciated it. And we have a Q&A. What do we got?
David said exactly what I was just going to say. We're on the same wavelength today, David. I was going to ask, hey, Ron, are you the guy building this tool, or is someone just taking it from your CP store? Which is it?
Oh, the new stuff from the development? No, they're working on that, and they're aware of this stuff. We've talked and stuff like that. So as Chris was saying with 12, when that comes out next year, and the app portal and stuff like that, or what are we calling it officially?
It's we can't call it a store, otherwise it's somebody with a big fruit logo might show up on our doorstep.
The app portal or whatever,
logo.
That's right.
Or whatever. So the plan is, depending on how that's going to morph, is that I'll put some stuff on GitHub too for workflows and things like that as well, as that comes out. One of the
Ron,
things
are you going to get royalties
about,
for that feature? Are you going to get
no.
Okay.
I'm getting a paycheck and good performance reviews, right?
Buy
Chris?
more IGEL and we get rewarded. That's how it works.
There you go.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
But one of the use cases we were talking about printers and stuff like that, and work from home and things like that. I built a profile here around work from home, add network printers. So for example, I built some sample profiles here, and I talk about printing. So from printing from a network printer, built into the IGEL OS is the cups and the IPP stuff. So I can actually go out, query a home network, find printers, and then add them to the device. So that's basically what this little profile does, is to do that. So from a Citrix point of view, here, if we're going to crack open and look at a profile, it's an XML-based file. And what I'm doing, this is like college. What would this be? A 300 level class, maybe 200. But anyway, the basic thing in this profile or XML is that I'm saying, hey, I want to run this custom command. And so what I'm doing here is on the fly in this profile, I'm creating a script, and at the end of it, I'm making it executable, and then I'm actually running the script. And so basically with IGEL and a profile on the fly, you could assign a profile that would just create a script and then run that script. So this profile, when you deploy it, would then, create this profile or create this script and then run it. And all this is doing here with the NIT is just going out and querying the network for all printers at home, all network printers at home. And then it's just going ahead and issuing the commands to add that printer to the device and set it up. So that's basically it. And then I'm just setting stuff up, since this is with Citrix, I'm just tying some stuff here to say, hey, add that printer, so Citrix knows about it as well in your ICA file. So just a simple little script that you could automate setting up home printers.
So are you, so Ron, in that instance, right, is it querying printers that already live in the IGEL? So for example, let's say I have a brother, whatever printer at home, right? And I plug it into my IGEL device. If I understand this correctly, is this profile basically saying, okay, I'm detecting your brother, whatever printer, that model, I'm enabling it in cups, and I'm going to pass it on to Citrix?
Exactly. Yep.
Very cool.
But this is for network-based printers. So basically, when you do the cups IPP and stuff here, is that with the network printer. So this command here is just doing an SNMP, the cups SNMP on the home network, and just saying, hey, are there any printers at home on the network? And if it is, then it says, while I'm finding those things, add them. So what's cool about the cups IPP is that it can query a printer and figure out what it is. So like I've got a brother MFC, it's a dual sided, dual print, print either side, whatever. It can query that printer and get all of the printer stats for what it is, and then it rolls it in. So now you can print double-sided, you could print, 4 pages, 4 sheets on a page, or whatever the different settings that printer would support. It just auto-magically figures it out and it adds it in. And that's all the code that it is just this little loop here. Boom, that's the magic.
Very
and
cool.
It adds it in, sets it up, and it's done.
Well, I think, right after the lawyer with the fruit on his jacket comes and sees you guys, there might be another lawyer with a window type icon based on David's next question. Chris, I think you want to take this one.
I was starting to type an answer, but you know what? We're going to go with the live answer. Okay. So
let me go ahead and read it. And then I'm actually curious your guys' take on this. David asked, do you see a point where Windows Desktop isn't needed anymore? I know that's a wide topic with the standard IT answer of it depends, but I'm thinking IGEL OS may become the desktop users use for their daily work. Gentlemen?
Yeah, I mean, the basic thing is, as I said, I was showing you my Dynabook laptop that when I travel, I just grab that and I just run it. IGEL is my laptop and stuff. I can connect into my AVD or Citrix or whatnot. But then I also have native local apps, kind of as well, that I can go off of, right? So
yeah, a couple of things there. So we've talked about this on the XenTegra IGEL weekly podcast from time to time, Andy and I and others. The long tail of Windows, right there. Will there ever be not a need for a Windows desktop and apps? Hard to know. I mean, at some point probably, and will it just become all about the apps? What IGEL, the custom partitions and soon to be the app portal. Yeah, there are going to be a lot of apps, but IGEL doesn't want to ruin our security model with the read-only approach and have a bunch of data local that could get compromised. And so that would fall in the whole face of this things. But to make it as functional as Ron was saying, where I could, I've literally taken my laptop and just used Edge to get into Office and do work, and I can launch Teams from there. And, I'm functional, right? And I can do other things too, join a Zoom call if need be, whatever, Teams, and so, yeah, I mean, and that's kind of the goal. And one of the projects I'm actually working on is, from a healthcare perspective, bring a lot of the workflows that are possible from a customer that might be using Imprivata in a Windows functionality, to bring a lot of that functionality, that same concept, to using IGEL on the endpoint. So the way they authenticate, the what they get access to, and what work they can do, as much as possible, whatever you can do on Windows, bring it to IGEL, and that's kind of the focus. So, yeah, I mean, IGEL wants to take over the world.
Well,
and then we had use cases where hey, we don't need the VDI backend. We want to do these other things, and then we standardized on like CrowdStrike Falcon to be our endpoint, stuff. So here's, for example, for that client, then here's the builder to build the CrowdStrike Falcon, client and deploy that as a CP to IGEL, right? So.
Yeah, I think too, you think about that question, with David's question, it's like, the other thing that's pretty cool, I don't think, Microsoft is clearly not going anywhere anytime soon, right? From a licensing standpoint, they're very well positioned. But for the desktop, right, that's the incumbent. That's what users are used to. They're used to that workflow. I mean, I know Chris, you and Andy, I talk about it on the IGEL podcast. Like, I've been using all of my Office suite in the browser for 4 or 5 years now, and that's what I'm used to. And I don't even like using. Whenever I see Outlook open locally, I'm like, I don't want to go in there. I want to go in the browser. I'll make another plug here. There's because again, Microsoft is moving with Office 365 more of a SaaS-based model. There's a great platform. They're a partner of ours, is XenTegra, called Cameo. I would throw that one out there if you guys want to check that one out. That allows you to take, similar to what kind of Citrix does, right? But what it does is you can actually take a Windows application on a Windows server and turn it into a web page. So you kind of create your own little SaaS directory of applications, and they open up as a tab in the browser. Something like an IGEL at the endpoint between custom partitions, and something like maybe a Cameo or a Citrix on the back end, publishing your applications either through Citrix or through Cameo's browser functionality. I mean, we're moving into that world, right? And it's pretty cool. And I think it's a really great direction we're moving in.
And for my personal laptop with the IGEL is the Dynabook. So I just wrote a little note on how I set it up, its configuration, and what I like is, I don't like the little touchpad. I always like an external mouse. So this little thing here just talks about, hey, improve sound quality. This would work on really any device, but changing the default sound on the device, to be this setting here works. It just sounds a lot better. And then, as I was saying, that example, like, I don't like the touchpad, so I built a profile that would just disable that touchpad, because I'm just using external mouse, right? And things. And if you go there on the docs, IGEL, community on GitHub docs, the Dynabook setup, I have a little demo video here. And in this demo video, I actually shot the whole video just on Zoom on the IGEL device. So I basically started up Zoom and did a recording right on the IGEL device. And then I opened up YouTube and some other stuff and just have it all just playing natively on the endpoint. So check out the video. It's kind of cool. It's, as I said, I'm a cyclist. So I found this one guy in the YouTube video. He's in Moab, Utah, like trying to ride his bike up this real rocky thing. And anyway,
yeah, it's pretty crazy. Video. I would not, definitely don't try that if you're not experienced. Even if you are experienced, don't try it. So
yeah.
Crazy.
Guys, Rakesh asks, any idea if Microsoft releases the same feature on Linux and Windows-based apps like Teams at the same time? I'll go ahead and, well, go ahead, Ron, you take that one.
Yeah. So what I do is I run Microsoft Edge, right? And as I said, I run Edge I run Teams within Edge itself, and then you've got the latest and greatest. The Teams client, native client for Linux is there's not complete on par functionality, but if you run Teams within Edge, then you're on par with everyone else. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point. The Linux-based version of Teams. I don't know about Zoom. Zoom seems to be. I don't know. Maybe there's
Zoom is right on par.
Yeah.
You know, as I said, that was yeah.
I mean, if you look at the icon for Teams, it still says preview. If that tells you anything.
For Linux, yeah.
So,
but I just run Edge, and I do everything in Edge. Everything just works, and it's fully supported, you know, by Microsoft.
Yeah, what was really cool was when Edge first came out, they didn't have, for Linux, they didn't have the ability to log in with your like account, your work account or whatever, but that's long past. It's now working, and it works really, really great. So that's, and I, you know, I think many people have kind of taken a liking to Edge over the years versus maybe Chrome or something, but you know, if you like Google knowing about you, everything about you, fine, stick with it.
yeah. Don't use an advertising company. Yeah, no,
sorry, we're getting off the rails here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lawyers are just chomping at the bit if they're watching this. You know,
hey, Google has its place, just not with my data.
Listen. Yeah, speaking of which, you know, a browser I personally love is Brave. You know, from a security standpoint, does that exist on the CP store today? Is there been a lot of customer demand from you guys